has people that contribute in very special ways. And at RAJE, the Russian American Jewish Experience, we're very lucky to have Ron Hersh, who is more than just a donor, a giver. He's someone who is intimately involved. I call him like the father of the organization. There are even rumors that the R and the A and the RAJE are acronyms for the Ron Hersh Jewish Experience, which is probably true. He makes this place what it truly is. He pushes us to push this place onto a level of total excellence. So without further ado, Ron Hersh, if you could share a few opening words with us. If you're lucky, you'll have a region with this man.
If you're lucky. We have, what do you think, about 30 people up there? So I was asking why are the 30 people up there, why are they not downstairs? They weren't accepted into the program. And they're waiting for 30 people downstairs to leave. So I don't know, either we'll fix the situation for them upstairs or 30 of you can leave. I gotta learn to work without notes, I'm not there yet. First of all, thank you for coming. I'd like to read to you, there's a journal called Azur that's put out by an organization called the Shalem Center in Jerusalem. It's a Jerusalem think tank. And I was thumbing through one of the editions from 2004, and I stumbled on an article that was titled, "The Man Who Saved Soviet Jewry." 40 years ago, in the early spring of 1964, an imposing man in his late 30s, tall, with a Van Dyke beard, a British accent, and a Russian-style fur hat, appeared on the campus of Yeshiva University in Upper Manhattan, and he began knocking on dormitory doors. For weeks, he went from room to room, soliciting support for a cause of which few people had yet heard, saving the Jews of the Soviet Union. The man, Jacob Birnbaum, had arrived in New York from Manchester, England, the previous year with the aim of convincing American Jews to rise up against what he called the spiritual genocide of Soviet Jewry. Only the Jews of the United States, he insisted, had the resources and connections that could make a difference. The Soviet Union was not impervious to world opinion, he told anyone who would listen. With the end of Stalin's irrational rule, the Soviets, fearful of a rising China and desperate for technology and trade to infuse its failing economy, would increasingly turn to the United States for help, making the Kremlin vulnerable to economic pressure. With enough determination, American Jews could pressure the Soviet Union into concessions to prevent the cultural and religious extinction of Soviet Jewry. What was needed, Birnbaum insisted, was for Jews to schrei Gewalt, to cry out in protest. Birnbaum's proposed campaign was on the face of it absurd. The Soviet Union was at the time the most powerful empire in human history, and it had declared war against Jewish identity in all of its forms. An estimated 3 million Jews, a quarter of the world's Jewish population, had been singled out for a state-sponsored experiment in enforced amnesia. Where other religions were permitted to train clergy in their own seminaries and other ethnic groups were granted national theaters in their own language, Jews were denied almost all expressions of collective identity. Even the thaw following Stalin's death in 1953 did not temper the government's campaign against the Jews. Though 450 synagogues had survived the Stalin era, by 1963, all but 96 had been shut down by the regime. Jews were accused of undermining the Soviet economy, and some were executed after public economic trials. KGB spies were planted in synagogues, and most worshippers were too terrified even to speak with Jewish tourists from the West. Those few who did would only allow themselves to brush up against the visitor and whisper urgently, "They don't let us live. Why are American Jews silent?" before slipping back into the Soviet oblivion. Inevitably, it seemed the slow smothering of Jewish consciousness would result in extinction, and nothing could be done to prevent it. The article goes on to describe the growth of a movement called RAJE, Students to Save Soviet Jewry. It was this movement that was founded by Jacob Birnbaum that was the catalyst to the freeing of the Jewish people from the Soviet Union. And I'm going to step out and make a bold statement. It was this movement that was the catalyst to bringing down the Iron Curtain that kept its citizens enslaved for decades since the founding of communism. I was in high school and college during the period of the late 60s and early 70s. It was a time of protest and revolution. Civil rights movement, the anti-Vietnam War movement. We were the Woodstock generation. We were a generation that proactively worked to change America and the world. The RAJE movement was begun by young people like yourselves, who saw the need to do something to help bring our brothers and sisters out of the bondage of the Soviets. We have a new mission today: to reconnect our family that had been forcibly separated from its glorious heritage, and to reintegrate it so that you and your children and the generations after them will learn what it means to be Jewish, and how, as Jews, we are the people who will change the world and make it a better place. I've been involved with RAJE for a year and a half, and I've known Rabbi Tokarski for close to 10 years. I say this with all sincerity. I believe that this organization holds the key to reconnecting thousands with their illustrious past and to the creation of tomorrow's great leaders. I believe so much in RAJE and in you that I've made it my priority in my philanthropic work. In closing, I'm going to ask only one thing of you: believe in yourselves. Thank you.